O God, you have searched me out and known me. You discern my thoughts from afar. You trace my journeys and my resting places and are acquainted with all my ways. You yourself created my inmost parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I will thank you because I am marvelously made. Your works are wonderful, and I know it well. The words of this week's psalm have been ringing in my ears since I had the delightful honor of meeting the very newest member of this community last week, Joy Kathleen Weller. Yes. Yes. She was born to Katie and David on the morning of August 25th. She is healthy and she is perfect. I want to pause and acknowledge that this might be painful for some of you, for those who long to have a baby or who have lost a child. The delicate hope of this new life might feel tender, fragile. And joy is precious. She is a wonder to behold. If you've ever had the experience of holding a newborn, you might recall touching the almost impossibly soft skin, marveling over that teeny tiny nose, tracing the outline of each flailing limb. And I have held other babies who needed medical attention, whose bodies weren't ready or able to handle life outside their watery cocoon, and they too were perfect. Beholding an absolutely brand new human somehow allows us to simply be in awe, to be amazed and overwhelmed, to realize just how incredible life itself is. It's one of those places where we can see God's literally life-giving love most clearly. Each one is marvelously made, and I know it well. But I was caught up short this week when I began to wonder how many of us would say the same thing about ourselves now. The Psalms have formed a cornerstone of Jewish and Christian prayer for centuries. Monastic communities and folks who pray the daily office cycle through the entire book of Psalms on a regular basis. We chant or sometimes speak a psalm together every Sunday. These sung prayers have shaped the lives of our saints, our ancestors, and ourselves. While the Psalms come from a particular person with particular life experience, over time and use by so many, they have come to hold the hopes and truths of the whole people of God. The Psalms reflect just about every aspect of the human experience, every emotion from jealousy and rage to joy and unfathomable hope. There are psalms of lament, psalms of gratitude, psalms of praise. At different times in our lives, we might identify with one or another of them, or we might find them completely outside our frame of reference. Sometimes they reflect a grimmer side of human longing, the desire to smash our enemies or get revenge on someone who hurt us. And when we find ourselves reflected in those verses, we might find some reassurance from the knowledge that others have felt this way before. We might find hope, knowing that the life of faith is big enough to withstand these storms of our own emotions. Sometimes we might find ourselves saying parts of a psalm not yet knowing if we fully buy into the words. We might pray a psalm of trust or peace aspirationally, hoping to one day believe or trust as fully as the psalmist does. And these places, I think, offer us an invitation not to let the phrases fly past us, but to sit with the words, the ones we hope to be true, to hold on to them and let the prayer tumble around in our hearts. O God, you have searched me out and known me. You are acquainted with all my ways. There's no corner of our heart where we can hide secret hopes, no level of our unconscious where we can bury unwanted thoughts, that God does not see and know them completely. As we have been praying each week this season, to God all hearts are open, all desires known, and from God no secrets are hid. You're not alone if you squirm in discomfort with the realization that the creator of the universe knows everything you think or do or want. Sometimes, perhaps, it feels easier to ignore God or try to run away. Though we don't hear the verses this morning, the psalmist certainly knows about that, trying to run to the furthest ends of the earth to escape God's presence. But what might shift if we sat with these as words of reassurance? If we trusted that no matter what thoughts come into our minds, no matter what we do or don't do, we cannot separate ourselves from God. God abides with us. As the psalmist realizes, there's no escaping God because the Holy One is too close for that. For you yourself created my inmost parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. The psalmist recognizes that because God formed our bodies, God is present in and to them. God guided your cells, shaped your body, breathed life into your lungs. From the secret, sacred darkness of the womb, God has been as close to you as a knitter with her yarn. We profess a God that is so concerned with our human existence that God became incarnate, took on a body, became flesh and blood. A God who births us anew with water and oil. A God who feeds us, not just with intellectual exercises, but with bread and wine. A a God who touched and healed and cried over other bodies. And yet, somewhere between infancy and adulthood, so very many of us learn to dissociate the knowledge of God's presence in our lives from the reality of our bodies. But this prayer insists that our actual physical selves are the place where we encounter God, where we are known by the Holy One. We cannot run from God or escape her love because it is woven into the very fabric of our being. What if we held on to this truth, claimed it for our own? What might shift for us and our world if we saw ourselves and every other human being as intricate works of God's own hand? It can be hard to trust, hard to remember, but the psalmist tells us that God still sees us as our perfect, beautiful infant selves. She still marvels over our nose and eyelashes and fingernails. If this feels difficult for you to pray wholeheartedly, I invite you to sit with it for a while until God's intimate knowledge of your every thought offers a deep comfort. Until you begin to notice the presence of the Holy One in your very body. Until you are able to receive the gift of God's life-giving love made manifest in you. Because you are marvelously made. God's works are wonderful. May you know it well.